Obviously, the stalemate between Jackson and the Ravens, it continues. ESPN, NFL.com reporting Sunday morning that Baltimore offered Jackson a contract that would have given him over $230 million, 130 of that guaranteed. Would have been more total money and guaranteed money than Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray just got with their contract extensions. But Jackson wants the fully guaranteed deal, similar to what Deshaun Watson got, maybe even more money than that. Is there any chance he will ever get a deal like that, Doug?
No, there's no way. And this has nothing to do with Lamar looked great yesterday, balled out. He's going to be, it has nothing to do with what Jackson deserves or any other quarterback deserves. When the Browns gave Watson that $230 million in guaranteed money, other owners were furious, and it had nothing to do with Watson's alleged multiple sexual assaults. It had to do with what the owners see as a dangerous precedent. Contracts with escape clauses are the last vestige of financial control for NFL owners. And even in situations like Kirk Cousins, where it's guaranteed for a year or two, that's really to manage a salary cap in the short term. If you look at Watson's contract, the dead cap in the first few years of this deal is similar to the gross national product of a medium-sized country. No other owner is going to repeat that mistake. It has, again, nothing to do with what Jackson deserves or not, or any other player deserves or not. The very idea of, even in the cap is going to increase as broadcast revenue increases and streaming and gambling and all that, because it's part of the CBA. But right, no owner wants to set that precedent of all your marquee guys having fully guaranteed contracts. Nothing to do with Jackson. It's just not going to happen.
Right. Obviously, like you said, from Lamar's perspective, he's looking at this like, listen, Watson already set a precedent. Whether you like it or not, that's the precedent that's been set. So I'm going to play to that. And considering what he's already accomplished in the league, the fact that he's still got such a sky-high ceiling, even from there after winning the MVP at such a young age and being a superstar already, and the fact that he doesn't have any of those off-field concerns, he has every right to go to the Ravens and say, listen, this is what this guy got. He set that bar. He set that market. Now it's time to do what everybody else does at every other position when this happens and go above that and say, this is why I deserve not just that, but more. That said, I completely agree with you. It's just not going to happen. The Ravens still have the leverage in terms of the franchise tag to keep him from hitting the open market for the next few years. The question then becomes, Doug, is how far will Lamar take this from his end? Will he sit out training camp next year? I know there's plenty of risk and reward from both sides here for the Ravens to push this too far, for Lamar to maybe, if he gets injured before he gets a long-term deal of any kind. So definitely going to be interesting to see where this goes. Now back to what happened on the field this weekend, Doug. As the new season gets underway, we had all kinds of coaches with situations they were presented with on Sunday with the opportunity to do the smart thing, and they did the other thing instead. What was the worst coaching decision you saw in week one? And it's going to be tough because we had a lot to choose from.
Yeah, I wrote a whole piece last night on the worst coaching decision.
It was great. It was great. You had a lot of fodder there.
Well, I started out thinking it was going to be Lovie Smith's decision to run Rex Burkhead on 3rd and 1 near the end of overtime against the Colts instead of Dameon Pierce, whatever, because you and I are Team Dameon, and then to punt to tie. But we're taping this Monday morning, and I just finished a piece on how the Packers had no plan for Justin Jefferson, and I would say running a bunch of simple country cover 3 against Jefferson was maybe the worst coaching decision I've seen this week.
I don't know, Doug. I just traded for him in my dynasty league. I think it was a great decision.
Well, you do, yes. But were you Joe Barry, the Packers defensive coordinator, you might be answering a few questions. Matt LaFleur, Packers head coach, after the game was quizzed about this and said, well, we were going to run zone. So Jair Alexander, the Packers' best cornerback, I think we all agree on that, was not on Jefferson once in the whole on all. Jefferson had 9 catches and 11 targets. Not one of those 11 targets was Alexander on their best corner on, best guy on best guy. Because they were playing zone. Well, you play Saban coverage. You play, man match. You do what teams do. If you're going into a game saying, well, this is what we're going to play, and we don't care what you do, with maybe outside of Devontae Adams, the best receiver in the NFL, Luke, I would say you get the cone hat for that one. That was I was going Texans, and I watched the Packers defensive tape this morning, and I'm like, oh, no, it's this. So for me, it's the Packers. Luke, what about you?
Yeah, I'm with you on the Texans bit as well. There's connection between them and the one I'm going to pick from last year, but I'm going to go with Zach Taylor and the Bengals. Right? I mean, again, it's hard to narrow this down, but you have the Jamar Chase touchdown that he doesn't challenge. Not only does he not challenge it, he races the offense races up to the line of scrimmage to run the next play super quick. They end up going all the way to 4th and goal before Chase actually gets that touchdown. If they don't score there, you're going to go look back at that play and wonder what in the world they're doing. And then they go to overtime and the time management, right? The decisions they made, how early they snapped the ball to leave the Steelers enough time on the clock to go down and kick that game winning field goal. Again,
15
I
extra
know this
seconds.
is the same guy, similar to what you just said about Burkhead. Remember last year in the Super Bowl, he's got Pirine on the field instead of Joe
Joe
Mixon with the
Mixon.
game on the line, just needing a couple yards. I guess I shouldn't be surprised here, but man, that was a hard one to swallow.
I'll give Taylor a little bit. What he said after the game was, I guess their starting long snapper. Yes, there is such a thing as a starting and a backup long snapper. Kids suffered a biceps injury either before the game or during the game, so they had a backup guy. And what Taylor said after the game was, "Well, we didn't want to pressure him with running the game clock down to 2 or 1 and having some sort of false start, or they already had a couple of bad snaps." So I get, that sort of Overton window where you have that, a few seconds where you're not putting too much pressure on the guy,
Right.
but, run it down a little bit, run it down to 7
It's
or
the
5.
NFL.
Yeah.
It's the NFL. Pressure is a reality in the NFL. You can't do that. Come on.
Well, yeah, I agree.
Now, Doug, we're going to waste no time here. Obviously, it's contender versus pretender time already. We're only one game into this season, but
It's
among the
overreaction time. Ding, ding,
it
ding.
is. That's why we do this. It's so much fun.
Woohoo.
Now, among the alleged contenders in the league going into the season, which one of those teams gave you the worst vibes regarding how the rest of the year is actually going to play out based on how they open the year?
Luke, I'm going to answer your question with a question. Do you think the Packers miss Devontae Adams right now?
Just a little bit.
So set aside the offense. It looked like an unmade bet against the Vikings defense that really I struggled to take seriously coming into the season, and then they look great. We already discussed the Packers defense, and boy, that Aaron Rodgers' first pass, Christian Watson, the rookie, drops it. I mean, it's right there. And the look on Rodgers' face on the field, the look on Rodgers' face when he's, pointing this and that, and he was either talking about Watson or the fact that the shrooms hadn't kicked in. With him, you never know. That's not a 1 week problem. I mean, we've said this before, right? Last year, Rodgers was complaining about his receivers. This year, he's got a point. And if you can key on their running back duo of Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, because they don't have any vertical threats, eventually even an Aaron Rodgers will run out of room. So for me right now, it's the Packers because their defense just got demolished by Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings head coach. Really progressive passing game. I mean, if we're talking coach of the week, I mean, Ken Dorsey of the Bills replacing Brian Dable and doing all his stuff. I'd put O'Connell right up there because, the Vikings have a progressive passing game. Dogs and cats, man. But yeah, Packers, this is not a 1 week problem. They have given me reason to worry over the long term. Luke, what about you?
I kind of feel bad, but I'm just going to keep piling on the Bengals here. They supposedly overhauled that offensive line in the offseason, right? And on paper, I guess they did, but it sure didn't look like it on the field on Sunday. They were Joe Burrow was constantly under pressure. You had all the turnovers. The defense is not going to have the benefit of playing against a Mitch Trubisky-led offense every week either, and even that wasn't enough to come away with a win in this game. Again, Taylor's head-scratching coaching decisions, you don't know if that's going to improve. It sure looked on Sunday like the defending AFC champs are actually going to have a hard time getting out of their own division this year. Now let's finish up with more irrational overreactions because it's that time of year. Let's go with the fact that 1 week in, who do you think is the first head coach to be fired at some point this season?
Luke, I do not think this is an irrational overreaction. I think it's Mike McCarthy. Cowboys head coach has never been known as a guy who will coach above his own station. He pretty much needs everything to be perfect if you want him to win a lot of games. There has never been a time in his career, which goes back a long way with the Packers and the Cowboys, where, a bunch of guys got injured and he's just going to Belichick his way out of that. That's not who he is. Well, Dak Prescott has a thumb injury, out apparently 6 to 8 weeks. Their left guard got hurt. One of their safeties got hurt in the 19-3 loss to the Buccaneers. Talking about offenses that look like unmade beds, that offense was abysmal. And McCarthy's supposed to be the mastermind, right? It's not Kellen Moore. It's not Dan Quinn on defense and Kellen Moore on offense. And McCarthy's just there to keep the coffee warm. That's what they tell us. But the Cowboys, whether they are realistic or not, always think they're in a championship window. And Jerry Jones alternates between being really impatient and really patient with coaches. I think his patience may wear thin, especially if the Cowboys, without Prescott, they start off, I don't know, 2-4, 1-5. Yeah. You think McCarthy makes it through that? I do not.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best choice. But if I had to pick someone else, I'm going to go to one of our favorite punching bags from last year, right? Matt Rule in Carolina. We talked a lot about his what seemed like ineptitude, I think, from our perspective. But
I think we can
it didn't look like things are going to be much better this year, based on what we saw Sunday, right? They kicked off their season with a home loss to the Deshaun Watson-less Browns, right? He's suspended, so it was Jacoby Brissett getting the start. They needed a late comeback in that game just to make it a game at all, again, against a team that didn't even have the quarterback that they traded for. So McCaffrey touched the ball 14 times. Christian McCaffrey, the best player on the field when the Carolina offense is out on the field, he gets 14 touches. And outside of that 75-yard touchdown from Baker Mayfield to Robbie Anderson, I mean, the offense was puzzling. It was pedestrian at best. The Panthers feel like they're wasting what could be one of the best young defenses in the league. And I don't even know what the philosophy is on offense, right? Matt Rule is brought in from Baylor. He's supposed to be this kind of new age, revolutionary. He's going to come in with this complex offense and make plays and kind of do some new things at the next level. It just looks like he's in over his head, right? It doesn't look good. And I'm going to add a bonus one here.
What's that? Ben McAdoo. 2 words. Ben McAdoo. That's the guy running your offense.
Not great. Not a great decision. And honestly, if I had to pick a dark horse here, after the playoff collapse last year and what the Titans looked like Sunday, especially in crunch time, and letting the Giants go in there and beat them at home, I feel like Mike Vrabel's seat has to be at least a little warm, don't you?
Could be. Well, that you have 4th and 1 in that game, and you decide, instead of giving the ball to Derrick Henry, who's on the field, to run a sweep to your rookie tight end who last ran the ball for Maryland in 2019, maybe not good. By the way, speaking of Carolina's defense, do you know how many times Jacoby Brissett was pressured?
Not much. Not much at all.
Once. And that was Cleveland's offensive line. When Bill Callahan's coaching your offensive line, you're in pretty good shape. Yeah, I agree with Rule. I mean, we talked about Rule last season, this offseason. We're going to talk about him like, why are you still here? Why did you fire Joe Brady and bring in Ben McAdoo to run your offense? I mean, we have all sorts of questions, and one weekend, very few answers in that regard.
Very few answers indeed. But I tell you what, the only answer I love is the fact that the NFL season is back. We have so many wonderful matchups this weekend, so much craziness, and I can't expect it's going to be any different in week 2. We thank you, the fans, for coming along again for another episode of 4 Down Territory. Once again, for Doug Farrar, I'm Luke Easterling, and we will see you next week.
Take care, everybody. Thanks.